This is Moments with Foo with James Foo Torres, better known as Foo, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Moments with Foo is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Foo.
Hello and welcome to Moments with Foo. I'm your host, James Foo Torres, but you can call me Foo, hence the name of the podcast. And today I have Farah Saleh. She is a CPA and founder of Lumen Tax Resolution, and I'm going to let her tell you more about that. But first, Farah, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's just you told me like it was pronounced like Sarah, and then I went my mind.
It's okay.
Oh my God. I practiced it and everything, but it happens.
That's okay. It's okay. I forgive you, but thank you for having me today.
Thanks for taking the time. So let's kick it up with a quick introduction about yourself and your company.
Okay, sounds good. My name is Farah Saleh. I'm a virtual CPA. I'm based out of South Florida, but I serve clients worldwide. I'm a licensed CPA in Florida, Michigan, and Australia, and I specialize in tax resolution, which is a service that helps individuals and businesses with their tax problems. And I also specialize in tax advisory and tax planning as well.
Awesome. It's something that is extremely important. I love the tax space because, that's one of the biggest expenses, if the biggest, I believe, the biggest expense that we're all gonna have. So it's good to be able to minimize that cost because saving money is making money. Right. So it's hard to earn money. So keeping as much as possible is very important. And then getting on sticky situations with the government, right, with the IRS. And not many people are able to properly represent clients with the IRS. So I haven't met many people. So you're one of the few that I've met. So definitely something very important. So on that note, right, that your expertise is that tax resolution. What is some advice for business owners that they should watch out for to not get in a situation that it gets in a big problem with the IRS, or any other advice that you think that might be good for business owners to know given your expertise?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'm not sure if you heard or not, but the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed in August 2022 gave the IRS about $80 billion of funding. Recently, about 20 billion or so that was rescinded in the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023, but that's still an overall increase of 75% to the IRS in funding, which means that they are making enforcement one of their top priorities. There's a $1 trillion tax gap that they're trying to close. So with all of that being said, what I can definitely recommend or advise businesses to do is to just be compliant. The statute of limitations is 3 years for audits. So just making sure that their reporting is precise, their practices are in compliance with what the IRS is asking for. If you're a single member LLC or sole proprietor filing on your Schedule C on your personal tax return, those do tend to get audited a bit more. If you're a partner in a partnership, those do tend to get audited a lot less than the other returns. And if you own an S corporation and you're not taking a reasonable compensation, the IRS has been pretty vocal about pursuing those individuals. Anyone with unreported cryptocurrency or high income non-filers. High income is now considered to be $100,000 of AGI, believe it or not. So just being diligent in your practices, making sure you have a good CPA or a good accountant. And I would definitely always recommend keeping your personal and your business income and expenses completely segregated. You don't want to pierce the corporate veil. And in the event that they're ever, God forbid, audited, it's hard to explain to an IRS agent why certain expenses are commingled and trying to justify them. So just being diligent in their practices for sure.
Yeah, definitely is something that is very, very important. Like I really like the the emphasis on look, there was so the government invested a lot of money in the IRS. They will want to get that money back, and they'll get it from our pockets, right? Taxpayers' pockets. So it's something to definitely take in consideration. That things that might have slipped in the last couple of years might not slip anymore. And another thing that I would add, based on the experience that I've had with clients and myself, the be proactive to not just focus on compliance, but also on planning, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So any an advice you want to say on that end?
I actually love that you just said that, because I tend to sometimes encounter situations with clients where they come to me once a transaction has actually been conducted. So like they'll sell a property and now they're dealing with all of these capital gains, or they're just dealing with different taxes and the tax implications of selling a property. And then they come back to me and they want to somehow mitigate that. But it was like, we could have done something before the transaction was actually conducted. We could have thought about different strategies together, maybe done like a 1031 exchange or did some pre-planning ahead of time. So that's only in real estate, but as far as a business owner goes, there are a lot of different things that we can do far ahead of time to mitigate potential tax liabilities and to take advantage of deductions. So I always say planning earlier rather than later on in the year for sure, but it's always best practice to at least do quarterly if you could with your accountant and CPA if you have a lot of activity.
When you say a lot of activity, when do you determine that or at least based on your experience, like when do you recommend for business owners to start investing and being proactive on these things, right? Because it has to be, you got to make money to be able to deduct money, right? So when do you recommend to start investing on tax planning, tax resolution, or well, hopefully not not getting to tax resolution? So when do you recommend to start investing on tax planning?
With tax planning, if you own a business, I always recommend trying to do planning earlier in the year rather than later, just because, especially if you're an S corporation shareholder, there are different deductions that we can take advantage of throughout the year. There are different strategies that we could leverage, which you can't just wait until December of that year to do. Or if you are looking to invest in a property, you're going to want some type of guidance along the way. This isn't something that you just want to do and then worry about the repercussions after the fact. So when I say people who have activity, if you're a business owner or you're an investor or you're pretty much a non solely day job worker, and even when you are like on a W-2, there are still different things we could do for tax planning, but obviously I can't be as creative as I could be with business owners and investors.
I'm glad that you touch on the W-2, because I think that's something that there's confusion even in my part and a lot of people I know, because I'm more educated than a lot of people, so I know that this is a very big topic, which is when it comes to a W-2 employee that wants to write off their active income taxes. What kind of options are they, and what are the most common that you recommend? Is it doing like a side hustle or things like that? What are some things that a W-2 employee can do?
That's a great question. And kind of let's back it up for a second. So the United States tax code was never created or intended to be fair. It's meant to incentivize certain activities. And one of the biggest activities that it's meant to incentivize is businesses. The second is real estate. And the reason for businesses and the incentives that come along with that is because it alleviates a lot of the financial burden from the US government, right? So if we go and we hire employees as business owners, they no longer need any governmental support, right? So they give us deductions and different means of leveraging tactics. So when you work for a company and you only have a W-2, your options are severely limited because there's really no incentive there, right? So to answer your question, I do usually recommend for people to try to do some type of side hustle, right? Because if you start operating a sole proprietorship or like a single member LLC on the side, now you're setting yourself up to not only generate an additional stream of income, but you can also take deductions against that income. It could be something as simple as doing DoorDash because you're 1099, and that could be like your little LLC or side business. So you have an additional stream of income and you're writing off different deductions with it. So I think it's always a great idea to start a side business if you could, for sure.
Perfect. That's kind of what I've heard.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make sure that to see what was your opinion on that. Because for example, like my barber, he works for Nike, and he's like, oh, Nike's taking all this taxes. It's like, well, like if you can write off certain things for your business, then for then like you can get some of that back. So and I told him to talk to a tax professional, right? Like, but that's what I thought that I, based on the knowledge that I've got to gather, especially from clients. So thanks for adding that. Is there any last one or two takeaways that I might have not asked you that you want to leave the audience with?
Sure, there are probably a few, but I think for one, I think there is starting to become a lot more accessibility towards financial education. However, I still am not seeing as much financial education with respect to taxes as I would like. We have a very complex tax system in the United States, and you said it earlier in the call where your taxes are going to be your biggest expense in your lifetime. And because it's such a pain point for so many individuals and business owners, I just personally tend to find that they just want to defer everything over to their CPA or their accountant and have them deal with the repercussions of their activities throughout the year. But I definitely think everyone should have a fundamental level of tax knowledge. And I don't know what that looks like for some people, whether it's watching YouTube videos or talking to other tax professionals. But I definitely think that there should be a very fundamental level of tax that we should all be learning and making it more accessible to the public, because it is so rare that I ever have a client that can tell me that they know how to read a tax return. And I'm not blaming them. I'm just blaming the fact that we don't have those resources available to the public as much as I would like for them to see. So just getting educated in financial education, especially with respect to taxes, would be one of my biggest takeaways to give you all.
Good. Thank you for that. And I completely agree. Education and knowledge is power. And definitely, I wish that they talk about this more in school. I think that's pretty basic survival thing in for an adult that we don't get taught. And it's a big push of my own too. Is that educational part, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you don't have the awareness, then you can't even start to mitigate or do things that will benefit you. So what type of people are you looking to connect? That could be clients, partners, people that will be beneficial for you to connect with.
Yes, thank you for the question. I would say just like-minded individuals like myself, so other entrepreneurs. It's always great to connect with other young entrepreneurs, and especially if they're in my profession. I find that there are not too many young CPA business owners, so I love connecting with them and just kind of exchanging ideas with them. But from a clientele perspective, I would say any service-based businesses that are looking for monthly tax planning and thorough tax planning at that, or any individuals or businesses who are having IRS problems where I could potentially help them, you can feel free to reach out to me. My website is lumentaxresolution.com, and there's a Calendly link attached to it if you want to schedule a call with me.
Perfect. That was my next question. How can people connect with you? So you beat me to it. So thanks for taking the time. I think that you dropped some very valuable tips, and for people that listen to this, it definitely should put things into perspective if they're not already being proactive on it. Obviously, that those people already know, right? So but thank you for taking the time to come here and give value to my audience. And I enjoy having the connection. I hope that we can collaborate on more stuff and people connect with you given because of this podcast. So thank you.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to our collaboration in the future for sure. I think there's a lot of benefit we can get from each other. So
I agree. Young entrepreneurs passionate about the wealth, right, and how to preserve it in a general sense. So
right.
perfect. So this was Farah and Fu, and this is us signing off.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Moments with Fu with your host, Fu. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.